Good morning. You are listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEGtalkradio.com. You can click on live stream on the tab where say live stream or watch us live on your smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. My name is Ramona Hernandez and we are in our bilingual place. Um, Today we're gonna have an interesting topic. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where speak into life into the community. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram in WCEG-talkradio.com and WCEG Network. And keep in mind our opinion and our comments are our own and not WCEG Network. Thank you so much for always supporting us. Muchas gracias por estar con nosotros hoy. Estás escuchando el nuevo WCEG Network en la radio WCEG-talradio.com. Puedes poner clic en live stream o mirarnos en vivo en tu Smart TV, YouTube WCEG Network. Buenos días, mi nombre es Ramona Hernández y estamos en nuestro lugar bilingüe. Nosotros somos la comunidad alrededor de entero de empoderar al grupo. Nosotros somos la radio que hablamos para la comunidad. Puedes darnos like en Facebook, Instagram y también puedes ir a Twitter, a YouTube, en WCEG Tal Radio, en WCEG Network. Mantén en cuenta que las opiniones que nosotros damos en este programa solo son de nosotros y no envuelven a WCEG. Buenos días, feliz año nuevo 2020. Espero que este año nos traiga a todos muchas bendiciones y podamos volver a nuestra vida normal. Thank you so much for being here with us. Happy New Year. Happy 2021. I hope this year bring us so much happiness and we can back soon our normal life. So beginning with our program today, gonna be something very different. The format is changing, but still is we're gonna be doing discussions about different issues that we are living in our lives. So today we have some guests, and I'm gonna give them the opportunity to talk. Your name, what is your organization, and what is your work in the community? Please, Shayla, por favor, Shayla.
Hi, thank you, Ramona, for inviting us. It's such an honor. My name is Shayla, pronouns are she, her, ella. I'm the president and founder of Bridging the Gap. We're located in the Fulton area, helping Latinx and Chicana X families here in the South Fulton. Our mission is development and promoting the involvement and empowerment of people to create safer, healthier, and more educated communities. And that's what we're currently doing in our own community right now here in Fulton County.
Thank you. Antony?
Thank you, Ramona, and hello, everybody. My name is Antony Pacheco. I am a civic engagement coordinator here at Asian Americans Advancing Justice in Atlanta. We're a local nonprofit in Gwinnett County, and we focus mostly on immigrant rights and voting rights. So yeah, thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us. Gracias por tomar el tiempo de estar con nosotros. Yo sé que el 2020 nos ha dejado muchas experiencias, también nos ha enseñado una nueva manera de vida para todos. Hemos tenido que cambiar nuestras rutinas y maneras de tratar con las personas alrededor de nosotros. ¿Ustedes me podrían platicar un poco de cómo ha cambiado la vida para ustedes en el 2020 trabajando con la comunidad y personalmente cómo han aprendido ustedes a manejar esta situación? So I know 2020 have left us a lot of experiences. 2020 has changed the way to live for everyone, the way to manage our daily life. And it has been very difficult. But can you tell me how these have changed in your job personally and how you handling these new changes?
Yeah. So before COVID-19, my organization, we were doing a lot of informative workshops in Spanish for a lot of families that weren't able to receive the information they were receiving only in English. So we were translating all the documents, we were doing informative workshops. But after COVID-19, we had to shift into emergency mode. The emergency mode is when we relieved the rental assistance for COVID because we realized that a lot of our families weren't receiving as much hours or they weren't able to. A lot of people had not been able to just work at all because of COVID. So we went into emergency mode and helped and aid them in that type of way. But we did know that the election was coming up. So we had to get very different volunteers that were very determined and very that were determined to turn the election and or turn Georgia blue. So we went out and canvassed over 6,000 homes. We also sent 100,000 text messages to make sure that people knew about their election dates. So we were doing that. We definitely underestimated COVID-19. We didn't think it was going to affect us directly, and we didn't think that we were going to have to get into a place where we had to think about other than in-person type of events. So we had to do that. Entonces, para nuestra comunidad latina, vimos que antes de COVID-19 estábamos dando talleres en español para la gente que no sabía inglés. Entonces, yo quería que las familias sabieran de los recursos como otra familia que hablaba inglés. No importa qué lenguaje estabas hablando, pero era importante que la persona o la familia recibiera esos recursos. Entonces, tuvimos talleres informativos y teníamos como estábamos poniendo todos los documentos que estaban en inglés a español, y entonces tuvimos esto, pero después de COVID-19 nos tuvimos que dar como un pensamiento que era algo para ayudar a a las familias que sufrieron COVID-19. Entonces le estábamos dando a la comunidad asistencia de renta, asistencia de comida por un cierto de tiempo, y después vimos que las elecciones se nos acercaban más. Entonces tuvimos que, aunque COVID-19 o COVID, o si no hubiéramos tenido COVID, la pelea para democráticos no para. Entonces nosotros nos aseguramos que fuéramos en las casas para darle la información a la comunidad latina, para que salieran a votar y representaran nuestras voces en las votaciones en estas elecciones.
Muy bien, gracias, Sheila. Anthony?
Yeah, I think 2020 has definitely been very different in terms of like organizing. And for many organizers like myself, I think we've had to become very creative in the ways that we reach out to our community. So this year, or actually last year, 2020, I still think that we're in 2020. What we've done is switched our campaign work with the elections over digitally. So we were able to talk to people over the phone and text them, and then headed towards maybe like the end of the year into the runoffs for 2021. The last 2 weeks, we did a lot of get out to vote by knocking on people's doors while also maintaining social distancing. So to me, I think things have changed for sure, but the work is still there. And we're making sure that people are aware that elections are happening, and I'm glad to see that the turnout was big. Obviamente para nosotros como organizadores en derechos civiles, especialmente para las elecciones y para salir a votar, ha sido un poquito difícil, pero hemos tenido que ser muy creativos en las formas de cómo nosotros vamos a alcanzar a todos las personas que pueden votar aquí en Georgia. Y lo hacíamos a través de llamando por teléfono, mandando textos, usando como los medios sociales para que la gente pueda saber que hay elecciones que están pasando. No solamente elecciones para el presidente, sino para también comisionado público aquí en Georgia y también de los dos senadores. Entonces, para nosotros ha sido un poquito difícil, pero creo que muchos organizadores siguen siendo creativos, especialmente para este año.
Ujú. Sí, ciertamente ha sido muy importante su trabajo, porque ha surtido efectos. Ahora quisiera que me platicaran ustedes un poquito más de cómo han visto ustedes la participación de las comunidades minoritarias en estos procesos, que el año 2020 fue el censo primero, después las votaciones, después los run-off. Ustedes saben, para desempatar esta pelea, pero déjenme saber. So, for sure, 2020 has been very challenging, and the job you do is very important, because 2020 was very hectic. First, it was the census, then the voting, and then, these run-offs that required a lot of work. So how you see the participation for minority communities? How you feel, how you see the participation, especially for young people? Tell me, please.
Yeah. So for me, it was a lot of big changes. I think that a lot, like it was all like you said, Ramona, and I want to emphasize, it was of course the census, and we had the census, and then we had the we had the elections, and then we had runoffs, and then during a whole global pandemic, which was way harder than we thought. So it's very, very clear that the fight never ends, that our work doesn't end. It's always one thing after one thing after one thing. But I think that by the time of census, COVID-19 wasn't as real, or people didn't think that it was going to hit us as much. So it was a little easier to do outreach to people, because I think that we were still talking in person with people, of course with social distancing, but I think we were more able to do that. And then, of course, then COVID-19 hit, and then we had the presidential elections and the runoffs. And I think to that point, people were kind of tired. People were kind of tired of not hearing their voices be heard, or they were kind of tired of Congress, or like even the president himself say like, oh, like we weren't going to go out to the polls. Oh, he was underestimating our voices, underestimating our work. And a lot of people, especially minority communities, made a statement in these polls, made a statement in these census to fill out the census. They made sure that they were going out to the polls, registering to vote, regardless of the voter oppression that was placed on us. People definitely made a statement in this election and census. And I mean, it shows a lot, because I think that now families, and now aunties and grandmas, and your teacher, your organizer is always constantly telling you, constantly sending messages of what's going on. I know everybody's tired of us. They were tired of us and our messages, I know. But I think that all the resources were there, and minority communities, especially young communities, sucked it all in and said, okay, it's time for us to get out to the polls, and it's time for our voices to be heard. Entonces, para las comunidades minoritarias, yo creo que por el censo ya era más fácil platicar con la gente porque COVID no estaba tan feo. Pero pues claro, cuando estábamos hablando del censo, todavía teníamos que tener nuestras máscaras, pero era a un nivel que nosotros todavía podíamos acercarnos con la gente. Pero ya después que pasó, como usted dijo, Ramona, fue el censo, las elecciones y después el runoffs, creo que la gente ya estaba cansada a ese punto, ya con las elecciones del presidente, ya la gente minoritaria estaba cansada porque mucha gente no creía en nosotros, no creía en nuestra voz y nuestro trabajo. Y ellos querían dar un mensaje diciendo, o sea, nosotros aquí estamos, vamos a luchar y la lucha nunca para. Y pues gente joven, y la gente que a lo mejor no tuvo la oportunidad de votar, todavía estaba ahí con la gente que sí podía votar, diciéndoles que vayan a votar. A mucha gente todavía tocaron a nuestras puertas, mandaron mensaje con nosotros, porque ellos sabían que era muy importante, que era tiempo ya que, que fuéramos a esas elecciones. Entonces, yo creo que la gente minoritaria, la gente joven, sí hizo un buen trabajo y sí demostró algo muy bueno y muy grande que se va a seguir haciendo en Georgia y nacionalmente.
Gracias, Shayla. Thank you. Anthony?
Yeah, I think we're seeing, well, at least for me, I think voter participation is big, it's huge. We're starting to see the fruits of our labor because people are showing up to the polls. And also there's more access with the pandemic. I think people have taken advantage of voting by mail. So that really like speaks volumes to voter participation and the need for more voter access. And I think it's also really important to know that this is not something that happened overnight. It took many years, many decades for this to happen, especially for organizers and organizers of color here in the South that have been doing this long before maybe even I was born. But I think it's really important that voter participation um, has happened and will continue to happen. So not only like what did we do in 2020, but what's going to happen in the future to make sure that people turn out not just in these elections or every 4 years, but in every single election, because elections do matter also at the local level. Creo que para mí es muy bonito ver los frutos de labor acerca de la participación de los votadores. Y creo que muchos de las personas que salieron a votar, latinos, asiáticos, afroamericanos, personas de color, salieron a votar y usaron ese poder de poder votar por correo, que es bien importante y eso creo que ayuda con la accesibilidad de la votación. Y nosotros ya no somos una como minoría, ya somos la mayoría. Y creo que eso debe de reflejar en nuestros gobiernos, porque nuestras comunidades son muy diversas y no solamente queremos que las personas salgan a votar cada 4 años y que haya mucha participación, sino que se crea como un hábito para poder hacerlo, no solamente cada 4 años, pero en cada elección, cada año que haya una elección, las personas sepan quiénes son sus representantes y quiénes ellos van a elegir para que sigan en nuestros gobiernos.
Thank you, Anthony, Shayla. Thank you for the hard work you do to help educate people in the communities, because sometimes it's really is very difficult to see, to identify how I can do this, or what is the best candidate, or how how run this process. So that is very helpful that you do. So now let me ask you this. With the experience of 2020, do you think the mind for the people that was denying to change or denying, because many of people from the communities just think, I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to make the census. Anyway, the authorities going to do whatever they do, or not going to be my candidate, or, who going to win. Do you think for the future, the experience for 2020 gonna change the mind for all of these people, and they gonna follow in participating in the way they did? Gracias por su trabajo. Es muy bueno lo que ustedes hacen, porque mucha gente no sabe cómo seguir los procesos, no sabe cómo hacer las cosas o para dónde moverse. Muchas personas de nuestra comunidad a veces tienen el pensamiento de que, ¿por qué voy a votar? ¿Para qué voy a hacer el censo? Si de todos modos todo va a seguir igual. ¿Ustedes creen que la experiencia del 2020 cambió la forma de pensar de las personas, y ellos van a seguir participando en estos procesos?
Yeah, for sure. I think that as organizers, it's our job to do most outreach to those type of people, those people who are very like you said, like they're not gonna listen to me. Why? It doesn't matter. But it's funny because when a lot of I talk to these type of people, they generally don't know, they don't know much information. It's not, I don't think it's not because they don't want to, or they don't, or they're in denial. I think it's more of a fear, more of a language barrier, more of they think that, oh, if I fill out the census, it's going to go to immigration, or oh, if I fill out the census, they're gonna sell it, or whatever, and I think that that's something that a lot of organizers, we know and we realize and we acknowledge that. And I think that it's always a certain way we have to come out to those communities, because they're in a place where we understand their fear, we understand what they have to go through, and it's our job to just hang in there and just be patient with them and just talk to them and tell them the importance of what the census is, or why is it important for you to get out in those elections, for people who, or for families who think like this, and their son or daughter has the opportunity to vote, and they might tell them no, it doesn't even matter if you vote, they won't even listen to your vote won't even count. But I think that that's important to talk to those people and tell them the real information about what's going on, and explain to them, not only provide them the information, but also explain the information about it. I think that this election and the runoffs, of course, prove that our work, it worked, and that our explanation and our tireless conversations with them, that they really sucked it in, and they said, okay, maybe it will work. And and I'm super glad that we had this type of outcome, because it shows that it just proves to them that this worked, and it proves to them that okay, look, my vote did count. Or regardless, it was gonna count regardless of who won. But I'm just saying, I know that having a better outcome for us really helped those type of people get out there and just continue to do it. Like Anthony said, making voting a habit, or just being civically engaged more into a habit that we don't really think about much, but we just simply do it because it's our right as humans and as citizens. So I think that's something really important to acknowledge as an organizer, and I'm super glad that people really did get out there and sucked in all the information we did give them. Entonces, yo creo que para la gente que pensaba así o que piensa así, a veces como organizadores es nuestro trabajo platicar con esta gente y darle la información, no nomás darle la información, pero explicarle la información. A veces nuestras propias familias o nuestras propias comunidades, a veces como que no es porque no quieren votar, o no es porque no quieren hacer el censo, o no es eso, es porque a veces hay un una barrera del lenguaje, a veces no entienden la información porque la información está en español, está en inglés, digo, pero como a través, como organizadores, es nuestro trabajo decirle a la gente en español o dejar esos documentos en español para que las familias y la vecina o el abuelo, él pueda leer, él pueda entender la información como cualquier familia que no hablara inglés. Entonces, sí fue muy, muy bueno ver cómo la gente que pensaba así les dijeron, o como los padres a veces que pensaron así, les dijeron todavía a sus hijos y a sus hijas, vayan a votar, o a lo mejor sí sirve nuestro voto. Así yo escuché mucha gente y pues claro que nuestros votos iban a ser contados, sea lo que sea quien ganó, pero me gustó mucho ver que Georgia, pues fuimos azul y nos dieron o sea, fue una ganancia para nosotros y fue una ganancia para las familias que no pensaron que sus votos iban a ser contados.
Antony?
2020 has definitely changed the perception for many people about voting, because so many things are on the line. And in the midst of a pandemic, people are losing their jobs. There's not enough access to healthcare. People don't have, a lot of things that they need. And so I think emphasizing that, how government affects that, or how our elected officials make choices that really directly impact us, I think it's really important. And that's thanks to all the work that many people, like Shayla, has been doing around the census, and letting people know that, if you fill out the census, every person counts. It's also increasing, and giving resources to where it truly is needed instead of other places. And the way to do that is to make sure that people participate, and also knowing that like the system works in favor of those who participate in it. And I think that's always like our struggle with voters that maybe don't see that. And so maybe for us as like organizers, it's just trying to find ways to make people understand a little bit more about what it is to be civically engaged, and to be like really patient too, and also understand their perspective, because we're fighting a lot of things. We're fighting a lot of like voter suppression. We're fighting years and years of a system that has not worked in favor of our immigrant communities. And so I think it's important to see both perspectives on that. 2020 ha sido un año increíblemente difícil para muchas personas, y definitivamente ha cambiado la percepción acerca de la votación, y mucha gente ha ejercido ese derecho porque reconocen que muchas cosas están en la línea de eso. Por ejemplo, mucha gente que conozco han perdido sus trabajos, no tienen aseguranza médica, no tienen recursos que de verdad necesitan, y creo que eso es bien importante. Y también ver como, o saber que hay un sistema que trabaja, pero trabaja para los que participan en él. Y creo que es importante como organizadores ayudar a las personas que salgan a votar y entender como información básica, entender sus derechos, como empoderar su derecho y su voz para salir a votar, que es súper importante, y a la vez también entender su perspectiva, por qué es que ellos no salen a votar. Quizás se sienten que el sistema no está trabajando a su favor de ellos, o que su voz no cuenta. Entonces es importante entender eso, porque también estamos peleando contra un sistema que no ha favorecido a nuestras comunidades inmigrantes.
Sí, tienen mucha razón en todo lo que ustedes dicen, y sí es cierto, a veces muchas personas no hacemos algo porque no sabemos cómo hacerlo, y es cuando viene el pensamiento de decir, hay mucha ignorancia todavía en nosotros, mucho miedo de hacer las cosas y fallar. pero la única manera que puede cambiar esto es participar, informarse y educarse. So thank you so much. I know it's true. Many people, we don't know things. We don't dare to speak or do something because we don't know and we are afraid to do things. That's why it's very important, again, to educate ourselves, looking for help and ask, make questions. So I have some questions for you. Were the election results favorable with your efforts? And would you do it all over again? Tengo otras preguntas para ustedes. ¿Ustedes piensan que las elecciones, los resultados de las elecciones fueron favorables por sus esfuerzos? Y si ustedes lo volverían a hacer.
Sí. Entonces, esta pregunta, yo creo que como ahorita las elecciones del presidente, yo creo que las runoffs, sí nos favoreció y va a favorecer nuestra comunidad, y Georgia y nacionalmente, porque creo que estos candidatos son todos los que necesitamos, pro inmigrantes, pro health insurance. Entonces es muy importante y eso es algo que nuestras comunidades latinas o comunidades minoritarias sufren ahorita, porque pues nunca hemos tenido unos candidatos que nos promete tantas cosas para nuestras familias. Entonces, sí lo haría otra vez, con ninguna duda. Claro, me gustaría hacerlo sin COVID, porque pues es mucho más divertido hacerlo, pero con COVID o sin COVID nunca lo pensaría dos veces si lo hago o no. Claro, pues sí, es mucho trabajo, pero yo creo que cuando hay un equipo tan grande o cuando hay una comunidad tan grande que quiere algo y cuando lo queremos peleamos muy duro por eso, y entonces eso es un ejemplo de lo que pasó estas elecciones. Nosotros queríamos esto y pues fuimos en esas elecciones, votamos, hicimos el censo, no, porque lo queríamos, porque sabíamos que era importante, sabíamos, como Anthony dijo, muchas familias ahorita perdieron su trabajo, no tienen aseguranza, y sabíamos que si no vamos y no vamos a hacer esas elecciones o no les decimos a las vecinas, a lo mejor no vamos a tener um, o sea, ajá, porque pues teníamos que asegurarnos que todas nuestras voces fueran representadas.
¿Anthony?
Oh,
No, en inglés.
en inglés, right?
Lo siento.
Entonces for me, I would say I wouldn't think about it twice about doing it again. I think that I would do it one more time, and I would do it two more times, three more times. Even, of course, I would love, and not in a global pandemic, because it's way fun and it's way easier. But I think that the global pandemic showed a lot about us and about organizers and organizations, to see how we were going to outreach to each communities with a whole global pandemic. And I think Advancing Justice, Bridging the Gap, did a very, very creative, very unique. We thought outside the picture. We had to think about every little thing, and I think that we did it in a really good manner, especially when we had this type of outcome. I think that a lot of people had a lot on stake. For example, like Anthony said, health insurance and like immigration rights and citizenship rights. So there was just a lot on the table that we knew that if we weren't going to out in those polls, other people who didn't care about these issues like we did were going to go out to the polls exactly, and they could have more of a better outcome than us. So I think I think it was really important for us to get out there, especially like I mean, there's a whole global pandemic. There was a lot to talk about in 2020.
Antony?
Yeah, I think that the results were very favorable because Georgia's like on this like huge stage across the nation, and people are depending uh, for the next what's going to happen in the next 6 years or next 4 years, like politically. And I think Georgia historically has not been the best because it's traditionally red, but seeing it flip, I think is favorable to many communities, and also it comes as a surprise to many outside of Georgia that many people were saying about this, that Georgia wouldn't switch from red to blue. No, you still have like a long way to go, or like we shouldn't put resources into Georgia. We shouldn't be like organizers here in the South because it's still growing. The numbers aren't there. But I think Georgia, has proven itself, and like the organizers here, the Black and Brown organizers that have led here in the South for many years, have shown that Georgia is a battleground state. Not only did it help flip the presidential election, but also two U.S. Senate seats that are very crucial, and not only at here in the U.S. but also I think I'm really proud to say that I'm from Georgia, because like the world is watching us, and I think yes, it's a lot of pressure, but I'm glad that the results were favorable. In terms of like like politically, and most importantly like voter turnout, I think it's really important. But I don't think necessarily that elections are the only thing that's going to like change things. I think many people still have to see that you have to be actively participating in that, and making sure that our elected representatives are held accountable, even if they look like us, even if they think like us. We still have to make sure that we keep an eye on them and make sure that they do our job, that they work for us, that they serve us. Sí, el 2020 ha sido increíblemente bueno acerca de los resultados, y también para el 2021 de esos resultados de las dos postulados de senadores. Mucha gente no creía que Georgia iba a cambiar de rojo a azul, pero se hizo, y no se hizo una vez, sino dos veces, en elegir presidente y dos sillas para el Senado. Y creo que eso va a ayudar muchísimo en poder pasar leyes que son pro inmigrantes, pro derechos civiles, pro para el medio ambiente, que es algo que me interesa muchísimo. Pero yo no creo solamente en las elecciones, no creo que ese es el fin de nuestro trabajo. Es importante que la gente siga participando, sigue como teniendo contabilidad con sus representantes a todos los niveles, aunque ellos piensen como nosotros, aunque ellos se miren como nosotros. Es importante seguir como siendo vigilante o tener vigilancia acerca de cómo pasan las leyes o qué pasa.
Muchas gracias. Es verdad, es muy importante cambiar, pero para hacer un cambio tiene que participar la gente, tiene que moverse, tiene que estar allí. Entonces, creo que esa es el principal motor para cambiar algo. That's true. Thank you for that. I think if you want to change something, you have to participate, you have to move on, you have to stay there to be able to see the change. Another question I have for you is, I know 2020 developed a lot movements, a lot new topics to talk, but recently it's impossible to avoid the question, what do you think about what happened on past days with the riots and domestic terrorists in Washington, D.C. Yo sé que 2020 nos trajo muchos movimientos nuevos, muchos cambios, vimos cosas que no pensamos ver, pero es inevitable hacer esta pregunta por los últimos días, lo que pasó en Washington, ustedes saben, estas marchas, estos terrorismo doméstico que invadió a la Casa Blanca. ¿Cuál es su opinión sobre esto?
See, I think that a lot of things and a lot of people don't see that, and they're very upset and kind of aggravated or mad that minority communities, I mean, they're not minorities anymore, they're majorities, and a lot of people went out to the polls and they're mad about that. They didn't expect that. They didn't expect for us to have such a big outcome like that. I think that a lot of those, and so they didn't expect it. They got mad. And if all, of course, the presidential and then of course the Senate favored Democrats, and Republicans didn't. They lost it. They didn't know what to do. And I mean, but it was a fair fight, you know. There was recounts in various states. There was a lot of just organizers just going out there and knocking on doors and just sending text messages, phone calls. It was a fair fight. And I think it's time for them to just give it up and just have us like shine for a minute, and because we're going to continue doing it, because it just in this election and just in the runoffs election, it just showed that people are going to still get out in there and vote. People are still going to be out there and civically engaged, and I think it's time for them to just give it up and just stop doing all the things they're doing, because I mean, of course, it's causing a lot of upset and disappointment into our country. And I think that there's no way you can say like, oh, it wasn't fair. I mean, the system has oppressed us, especially like minority communities, a lot. And I think it's time right now that it's not going to oppress us as much. There's a lot of fight. Like, we still of course have to be vigilant about the candidates and how they promised all of the issues they said. But of course, I think that now it's just time for them to just suck it up and just move on. And I don't think it's right. I don't think that them doing that, it doesn't help in any way. I think, like, for example, I mean, the Black Lives Matter movement wasn't about because the system wasn't because we lost, or it wasn't because of that. It was actually because people were actually suffering in a personal and directly level. But in compared to them, it was because they're mad because they didn't get the outcome they were wanted to. It's a big difference. And I think that it's just time for them to just sit back and see how us, like people who like organizers and minority communities, are going to be out there. And regardless of all their threats, regardless of their terrorist attack, I mean, a fight is a fight. A system is a system, and it's going to work and in favor whoever is civically engaged more. And I mean, that's what our communities are going to continue to be doing. Yo creo que las que lo que hicieron los actos de terrorista fue porque ellos estaban muy enojados, no creían que nuestra participación iba a ser tan grande como fue. Ellos están muy enojados porque no les sirvió. Pero el sistema es un sistema, y el sistema va a ayudar a la gente que va y vota más, que sus comunidades votan más, o a lo mejor el sistema va a ayudar a la gente que simplemente sí les importa más los problemas, y pues nuestra comunidad se les importó muchas estas elecciones, y yo creo que la diferencia con los Black Lives Matter Movement y la diferencia entre ellos es que el Black Lives Matter Movement fue un movimiento por derechos de la vida de gente, y esto lo que ni lo llamo movimiento, nada más son actos de terrorista porque están enojados, porque no agarraron, no tienen algo o no les sirvió en su favor, y nada más ni están enojados por una muerte de su persona, están enojados porque no van a tener a Trump otra vez, o no van a tener una persona que les deje actuar en esta manera que están actuando ahorita. Entonces yo creo que ya es hora que ellos ya se calmen. Yo creo que es hora de que si quieren un cambio en sus comunidades no creo que esa es la manera, pero porque como organizadores nosotros como organizadores de color nunca hicimos estos movimientos, nunca nos movimos así. Fue más sin violencia, fue una pelea derecha, y así va a ser todo el tiempo con nosotros. A lo mejor no con ellos, pero con nosotros así lo vamos a continuar, y nuestras comunidades van a continuar siendo más cívicamente afuera de sus comunidades y adentro. Y creo que eso lo van a ver pronto o no pronto, pero ahí vamos a estar.
Gracias, Shayla. Anthony?
We live in two types of Americas. I think after watching what happened, we live in an America where Black, brown, and indigenous people, are being brutalized by the police, arrested, discriminated, and even murdered by law enforcement. And on the other side of that is we're seeing a white protester being having so much privilege, or there's like an excuse for them to be able to act out without any law enforcement intervention. If a person of color was there doing the same thing, high chances are they could get arrested, they could get shot. And so yeah, we're seeing a lot of we're seeing like the consequences of white supremacy, because for the first time, the system is working in favor of those that participate in it. And that's like people of color right now. It's the diversity here in America, but white supremacy still wants to reign, and it's still really active here in the United States. And I think it's very shameful to be able to see that, because the world is like watching us, and I think it really just shows that America needs to reshape its government, the way that it's set up, to make sure that that everybody under the law is seen as equal and treated as equal as well. There's so much work that needs to be done in all levels, the local, state level, federal level, and making sure that something like this doesn't happen, where our institutions are not being demoralized or not being mistreated and also denounced, or like the validity of our government is shattered. We're living in an America where our democracy is falling apart, and yeah, that's what's happening. Creo que vivimos en dos tipos de Américas, donde morenos, afroamericanos, gente indígena y otras personas de color, simplemente por protestar por sus vidas, están siendo asesinados, han siendo brutalizados por la policía. Y el otro lado de esta, estamos viendo una América donde la supremacía blanca sigue existiendo, porque una persona blanca puede también protestar y en medio del Capitolio y no hay como pues, no hay consecuencias grandes, no, salen sin ser dañados físicamente o quizás no están, lo miran en la ley diferente a una persona de color. Y creo que si una persona de color estuviera ahí protestando en el Capitolio, sería arrestado inmediatamente o quizás hasta lo puedan disparar. Y creo que
Sí.
para mí es como una tristeza grande ver como nuestra institución de leyes está hecho como un poquito, no un poquito, sino muy ahorita estamos en un estado muy desastroso y hay que seguir luchando.
Es verdad todo lo que ustedes dicen. Uno puede notar las diferencias, pero esperamos que todo esto cambie para bien con nuevas regulaciones, nuevas personas, nuevas mentes. Esperamos que este 2021 cambie todo eso. That is true, and it is sad to see all of this, but we hope for 2021 with this new administration, new mindset for people in the government, everything has to change. We have to see the change in some point. So I have a last question. You are young, you have a lot of experience working on the community, different issues. Have you ever considered running for public office? Shayla?
Yeah. I love this question. I am. I'm currently a freshman at University of San Diego, double majoring in marketing and political science, and minoring in ethnic studies. So I'm just working on this degree, and right after this degree is done, and I have a little bit more experience, I would definitely be running for Georgia Senator soon. Well, of course, after they are done with their office. But I'll be running soon, and I can't wait to be out there and canvassing for my own campaign one day, and text messaging and calling all these people for my own campaign. So it's an experience, of course, to work for these candidates or for our communities, but I just can't wait for the day I run for Georgia Senator, and can't wait to see all my communities be out there at the polls voting for your candidate. Sí, me encanta esta pregunta. Yo ahorita soy una estudiante, mi primer año a la Universidad de San Diego. Voy a estar enfocándome con political science y ciencias políticas y marketing. Y ahorita nada más estoy trabajando en mi carrera. Y claro, en lo que trabajo en mi carrera estoy ahorita ganando experiencia con otros candidatos o como organizador en mi propia comunidad. Pero yo voy a estar corriendo para senadora de Georgia muy pronto, pues claro, cuando ellos ya acaben con su trabajo, yo voy a estar ahí. Me estoy muy emocionada porque a veces digo, oh my gosh, estoy haciendo esto para estos candidatos, pero yo espero hacerlo para mi propia campaña un día y espero que mis comunidades salgan como salieron por ellos.
Sí, gracias, Shayla. Antony, solo tenemos 5 minutos, pero quisiera de verdad escuchar tu respuesta. So, please.
Yeah, I think one time somebody told me that, working here in elections and politics, it's kind of like the mafia, because like once you're in, you can't get out. And I think that's very true. And so for me, if the opportunity arises, like, yes, definitely. I think it's important to run for office, even if you don't feel like prepared, or even if you don't think you're qualified. There's people in office who just run because they have money or they have other intentions that aren't favorable to the community. But I think the best people who are able to run for office are those that live in the community, that understand the struggles of the community, and that are willing to fight for them as well. And so for me, if I were to run for office, I would run at the local level, because that's what directly impacts us. And I think, you know, people don't necessarily see that how much influence our local elected officials, you know, on the city level, on the county level, have impact on us directly. Alguien dijo a mí que entrando como trabajando en las elecciones es como la mafia, porque cuando te entras es muy difícil de salir, y creo que si la oportunidad se lleva a cabo, pues claro, creo que es importante estar ahí para representar a mis comunidades y ser como un servidor para la comunidad, servidor público. Y me gustaría, si un día se da a cabo, ser un representante en el nivel local, porque es lo que nos afecta directamente, y creo que mucha gente no sabe cuánto poder tienen nuestros representantes locales, y es importante elegir las personas correctas que tienen intereses no por dinero, no por otras cosas, sino para el bienestar de la comunidad.
Les agradezco mucho de verdad su participación hoy con nosotros en WCEGTalradio.com. Me dio mucho gusto hablar y escuchar sus opiniones, y a las personas en el público, por favor, participen. No hay otra más que participar, y edúquense. Thank you so much for being here with WCEG Network. There is no other way. We need to keep participating. We need to keep educating. It is important to make changes. So today we finish with the program. I hope to see you soon with a new topic, very interesting topic where you can take advantage of resources. And remember, Shayla is the executive director for Bridging the Gap, and Antony is outreach, civic engagement for Asian Americans Advancing Justice. So you can look in them on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. And ustedes saben, solo sigan buscando recursos para poder tener más poder en nuestra comunidad. Ok, al finalizar este programa, ustedes pueden entrar a YouTube y volver a revisar la información. So you can go back to see this program on YouTube and WCEG Network. Thank you so much and have a happy 2021.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Gracias,
Bye.
Ramona.
Thank you. Gracias.
Bye, Shayla.
Bye, Enrique.
Bye.
Thank you, WCEG.
Thank you, WCG.